pick pieces of pop culture that were important to us in a given year. We then discuss memories and dig into those movies, albums, shows, and more. And sometimes we bruise ourselves. I'm Brad.
I'm Pete.
I'm Giff.
And I'm Dave.
Yay!
There we go. So this is the last episode of our Milestone month that was planned mostly by Dave, and he's been just a wonderful guest. Always love to have him on. And we're jumping ahead 10 years though now. We're jumping to 1996 for a hidden treasure of a movie that I was really excited to watch.
Yeah.
What's that movie, Dave?
The movie is Fear.
And why did you think we should talk about this? Well, I would have picked it too, but
Well, and that I've referenced this before. I've always mapped out the things that I thought would be interesting to talk by year, and this is one. We'll go around, and I think we're ending on me. But that's the thing is I've outside of just liking this movie anyway, I've got a very this kind of relates to just the idea of what I like about this podcast is I've got a very distinct memory that makes me laugh every time I think of it. That was great about like going back and revisiting this. So we'll get to that.
We'll get to that in a few minutes.
Dave, it takes you back to the kind of person that you were dating girls in high school, right, Dave?
Well, I mean, that is the thing is I could totally relate to the crew, as I like to call them.
The crew.
But yes.
We'll get who I still don't know what they really do, but they're a crew, that's for sure.
I'm going to reference that as well.
Okay. All right. So, hey, Pete.
We had our crew in high school, Brad.
Well, we did.
It's
We
the same
even
kind of
called
thing.
ourselves the Reservoir Dogs with 2 G's.
That's right. There's a movie we got to do.
Pete, had you seen this movie before or not?
I had never seen this movie before in my entire life. I heard it was fantastic. I hadn't gotten around to it. This is my first time, and I did think it was fantastic.
You did?
I loved it. Yes, I loved it.
Did you watch it alone, or did anybody watch it with you?
I watched it alone.
That's hot.
Yes, it
That's
was.
a hot
No, I was. Well, yeah, and it was good about. It's nice and short
Actually,
too.
that ties in actually to what I'll say. I saw it twice in the theater, and I'll get to that in a second. But
Yeah.
And so you saw
Brad,
it for the first time and you loved it. Did you have anything else to say?
Well, I know, Brad, how you like to be done with things the second you start them. So this is right up your alley because this is a pretty short movie at 1 hour and 37 minutes.
It's the good old 90-minute.
Throw it in. Yep. And so it was Stand By Me. That was was also a pretty short movie. I
Really
thought that
enjoyed that.
movie was longer than it was, but getting back to the one that we're talking about, no, I thought this was. We'll get into it, but I thought that the way that the story just develops and it just gets a little bit more and more, the way it builds up throughout the entire movie is really well done. And I was on the edge of my seat during the whole movie.
That's what I think they wanted you to do too.
That's exactly
Mission accomplished.
That's right.
Hey, Giff, how about you?
Well, watching it this time, I remembered some of the scenes. So I've seen it before. It was probably back shortly after it came out. So I didn't retain a lot of it from 26, 27 years ago.
I don't know how you could.
The thing that struck me right off the bat is, holy crap, do Mark Wahlberg and Reese Witherspoon look young in this? I mean, again, it's 27 years ago, so holy cow. But yeah, it's a fun ride. A lot of people refer to it as a teenage Fatal Attraction, which I think is a very good description of it. I also thought of it as an R-rated Clueless a little bit. Maybe based on the wardrobe in some of the scenes that I was fond of.
I get that.
A little darker.
A little darker.
A little darker.
Yeah.
If Elton had gone bad.
Right.
Well, Elton kind of wasn't on.
So, yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, I'm glad I don't have a daughter watching this because, man, I do not want to think about, having to send them out into the world on dates. It's tough enough with 2 boys.
The first thing I said to my daughter, I said, I'm not allowing you to date after I saw that movie.
I have a 14-year-old daughter, and I thought about seeing if she wanted to watch this with me because I thought it might be kind of fun but I'm really glad she didn't watch it with me because there's a couple parts that no, we don't need to watch that together. And it's
no. Don't need to see that
we'll get
together.
into the roller coaster scene a little bit later.
And much like Pete, I did watch this by myself until the roller coaster scene, which I did remember, and I called Courtney into the room and asked if she wanted to watch it with me. So,
and then you said you want to go to Valley Fair.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, there's a pit in my stomach watching this movie as it's building to the final. You know, you're just so I'm sure that when I watched this the first time, I saw it under the viewpoint of a kid because I would have been in college when this movie came out. Watching it this time, you're watching it through the viewpoint of a father, and there's a pit in my stomach as this reaches the end, and you're just so frustrated and angry. You're angry at the dad for the way he's acting, you know, and not taking care, you know, and you're
I have multiple moments in my notes where I referred to him as idiot dad.
Yes. Yeah,
That's
there's a
why
lot
I
of
narrated it. Idiot dad did this. Now idiot
He's
dad
a
does
good
this.
guy, but he's not a perfect. He has his imperfections, and we'll talk about that too.
And then just the aggravation with the David character just being, you know, a complete psychopath. So, I enjoyed it.
David's an asshole.
Yep. Yeah.
So let's get back to the movie now.
We got two Davids this month as the main villain in the films.
Yes.
David from
David Lopan.
Lopan, yes, David Lopan in the first week, and we got David McCall in the last week. So, but good pick. Glad you picked a Dave, and I enjoyed the viewing.
Two running themes throughout my notes. One was idiot dad, and the other one was Bush.
Yeah. Yep.
Because of the heavy Bush soundtrack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good music.
All right. So I already referred to this as a hidden treasure, and that's how I remember it. I have watched it many a time, but it's been quite a while, so I was excited to watch it again here. The main reason I saw it in the first place is because I think I've mentioned on the show before, I was basically infatuated with Reese Witherspoon from about 1992 on to whenever.
That'll happen.
But Brett, were you going into this
I
movie infatuated with her?
Oh yeah.
Was it because of Man in the Moon?
Man in the Moon, and she must have been in something else before that?
See, that's the thing. I kind of feel like, I don't know. I feel like personally, I felt like this was a movie where when we walked out, you were like, you know, that you really, you know, liked her in the movie.
Okay, let's put it this way. Maybe I wasn't infatuated with her yet, but I saw Man in the Moon in high school and I loved her and I loved that movie.
Okay.
And so seeing now she's in this movie and seeing the previews and everything, and I'm a teenage boy, and, you know, I was so excited to go see it because I loved her. So it might have just been that one movie that really got me there. Yeah. And then this one took it to another level. So the first time I saw it in the theater, I saw it with Dave. I think it was just the two of us. Is that right?
It was.
Yeah. We went to the Mall of America and we had a great time. And it was a great movie. And Dave's going to talk more about that. I liked it so much. Was it the next night? It might have been the very next night. I had worked on like a Saturday and I had nothing to do. And I went and watched it again by myself.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I love going to movies alone, but that was one of the first times I had really done that. Especially as a kid, you don't go to them alone very often, so it's a little.
Well, it's weird that you would go the next night after you just saw it.
I loved it, and I loved her that much. That was
yeah. She's hard not to love in this movie.
So she was great, but the movie overall, I just thought it was so fun, and I just think it toes the line between cringy and campy, and being a legitimately good movie at the same time. Like it's not a B movie. It's not a great movie. It just hangs on that line so well. And watching it again, I feel like it still does. My mind didn't change on that. There's a lot of great actors in this movie. I felt like there was a lot of really good like direction. A couple things I noticed about that I thought were kind of unique that I maybe noticed more this time. Everyone is so committed to these roles too. I mean, Mark Wahlberg is committed to this role, and that's part of it. And as you said, Gifford, it's genuinely scary, maybe even more so now that I'm a dad of a teenage daughter. And so it's one of those movies that you can watch multiple times through different perspectives. Yep. And so that's another reason why I still enjoy it and was really excited to watch it and do it again here for the show. So that was my experience and my thoughts so far. Dave, turning it over to you.
All right. So yeah, I obviously I remember going to this with you over at the Mall of America.
It might have been a week later that I went. I don't remember for sure.
Rather than next day.
It could have been the next night though.
So at the end of this, I have a question for you on that. So, I do remember going to this at the Mall of America. I was pretty excited to go see this, and it's weird, you wrote down, Bush in your notes, but so I didn't really know much of the cast of this movie going in. Obviously, so I had a weird opinion of Mark Wahlberg going into this, and I really like Mark Wahlberg. I think there are some things that are very funny about Mark Wahlberg, but I because I was such a rap fan, I had a middling opinion of Mark Wahlberg because in a sense, he was a little bit of like a rap poser. And, he was the brother of a new kid.
That's the thing. This is before he got respected and big too. So it's like, what did we think about him at that time?
So what I was going to say is, I don't think I was like, oh man, I got to go see this Mark Wahlberg film.
Right.
I remember, and it back at the time, 93.7 in the cities, I think it was called The Edge. And
yes, The Edge played all the mainstream
a lot of
alternative music.
It was all, it was grunge central, and they were running a lot of commercials about the movie using Machine Head in the and they were, the thing that they were really hyping up was that the music of Bush is in the movie. And I loved 16 Stone so much. I was like, oh yeah, let's go to this. It'll be cool. Like, to me, it was kind of that was back at a time where I think soundtracks could really help sell a movie. I think about movies like Dazed and Confused or The Crow, where I would go see the movie and then I get the soundtrack and there were all these songs on the soundtrack that I loved. So that was kind of why I was excited to go see it the minute the movie started. And I mean, we'll get to the introduction of, Wahlberg in the movie. I was all in, like I was like, oh, I like where this movie's going. And I think it'll be pretty cool. For me, the biggest thing that I was excited about as the characters were getting introduced, and I don't know if I knew she was in the movie, but I have had a huge boyhood crush on Alyssa Milano. And
right.
So, the minute I see Alyssa Milano, I'm like, oh, all right,
let's go.
That'll be nice for the next, hour plus or whatever. And so anyway, I was pretty excited. We went inside at the Mall of America, and this may be,
it's a pretty full theater too, right?
What's that?
We sat pretty far up, right? It's a pretty full theater.
Pretty full theater, and that's
how I remember
it. Yeah, like on a Friday night, pretty full theater, new movie, didn't know much about it. There's just a lot of anticipation. And I do think the pretty full theater is a pretty important piece to what I'm about to say. Which is,
don't oversell this. It's
No, but I gotta tell you, I love this. I love this story so much. So we are watching the movie. I'm gonna spoil the end, obviously. So we're watching the movie. It's super tense at the end. I do think that whole end sequence ratchets up so much to what the rest of the movie was, where it's like, holy shit, you're almost a little in shock watching that whole final sequence. And so there's all this tension, and, Wahlberg, William Peterson throws Wahlberg out the window.
And it's a hell of a throw.
Oh, it is. Well, so there's some Mythbusters physics going on there that we can talk about when we get to that part.
With your bad knee, Ed, you really shouldn't be throwing anybody.
But
never mind. That's a different movie. But
yes,
Ferris Bueller, excellent.
That was European Vacation, right, Pete?
No.
But so yeah, Wahlberg goes flying out the window. He hits the rocks. and the camera goes back, and William Peterson turns back to his family, and this family that's just been through hell, and the theater is dead silent, and all of a sudden
there's like a pause
goes,
too. It's like he stops for and like stares for like 3
well,
seconds.
yeah, it's this, he's got this look as he's looking longingly back at his family, and it's perfectly timed, silent theater, very packed. Anyone else with a comment? Brad drops the Hindenburg. I'm dying after he says that, right? And I do, like, anytime. So like when I binged Seinfeld with my kids, and they got to that episode where Costanza wants to drop That's gotta hurt in the Hindenburg movie, I can't watch that episode without thinking of Brad. So I'm gonna go on a quick little tangent. I've gone on and on before about how much I love How Did This Get Made, and I do think so. Every other week, How Did This Get Made has a mini episode where they talk about like the errors they made in their. It's basically one more chance to talk about them. But and I think they still do this. I used to listen to it like all the mini episodes in between, and they used to have this call-in line where people would call in, and it started to become more of a general advice line. And so I'm sure tons of people call in, they got to screen them, and they only play a couple from the week before. But Paul Scheer is on there, and he's talking about audience participation in movies. And somebody had asked him, like, is it okay to like talk to the screen in a movie, whatever? And he's like, yeah, that's kind of hacky. Although I got to tell you, I did it once where I thought I really nailed it. And his example was from LA Story.
What?
The minute he says this, I'm like, oh my God.
By the way, I'd like to point out, I don't talk to the screen. This isn't something that I do. It's not like I'm an annoying moviegoer.
No, absolutely not. But that's
part of the genius.
So when I heard that, I thought, oh my God.
All set up.
Because like we're all, I would say we're all, conscious, like good moviegoer. Like we're not there to make it about us, right? The only time I've ever talked back to the screen in a movie is when like midnight screenings of The Room. But the point is, so he says that, he goes, there's only one time I've really done it and done it well. And he says LA Story. So I'm like, oh, this will be interesting. So you're going to love this. So because on this, he's saying this on this podcast, like you said in the Big Trouble episode, it's not like LA Story is like this well-known across everyone movie. Mm-hmm. So he's saying that when the love interest moves to LA, and there's the scene where it's like a montage scene, but she's playing the tuba, right? Mm-hmm. So he says, I'm watching this. I know, like, she had mentioned she plays the tuba. They're showing her get settled in, and she starts to play her tuba. And there's a scene where, or there's a camera shot where it's right on her, like her mouth is about to start playing. And he goes, and I timed it up perfectly, and I made a giant fart noise. So I thought, all right, man, I got to go shot in the dark. I called in that week, and I'm like, listen, I love the fart anecdote. I got to tell you, I'm not a big fan of talking to the screen, but I also know of the second greatest moment ever. And so I told the story, and then I dropped your name and all that, but lo and behold, it never.
This is like a message you left?
What's that?
This is like a message?
You're just leaving it as a message on a phone line.
So it wasn't on the show or anything?
No, it never made the show.
Never made the final cut.
If it would have made the show, I would have reached out to you immediately and been like...
And just to back up, because we didn't really... If you listened 2 weeks ago, the line comes from Three Amigos, our favorite movie, where the German kills about 15 guys in the Mexican bar, and they're hanging over the bar, and he turns around and looks at the rest of the crowd, and he just goes... And he did the turnaround just like William Peterson. Anyone else with a comment? Dude, and the way he threw Mark Wahlberg, it was like, oh my God. And it's so perfect.
It's a lightning strike, man. It'll never be recreated. It was great. And so it does. Like, I can think about that anytime, and it'll put just a big smile on my
Let me
face.
ask you this, because in my head, I don't. How loud did I say it? Would I just whisper it to you?
No, you went for it, man. It was awesome. Like, it was great.
That part I don't
ruined
remember
it for
how much.
everybody else.
Right.
Well, and the thing is, though, too, if you remember, the movie ends right there. Like, there's no more dialogue.
That was the comment
that
I
was what I
made.
had.
Yeah.
It was
It's
the
just like
fastest
Karate
finish
Kid.
since.
No,
yeah,
it's
Karate
since
Kid.
the Karate Kid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks,
Yeah,
thanks,
it's
thanks a
It's
lot.
over and it ends. There's no resolution.
All right, so should
So-
we just go through the movie in reverse now?
Well, yeah,
Well,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, let's we can start at the beginning. And
Yeah, we will.
yeah, I don't know how you guys want to. I mean, do we want to just kind of run through, hit the big parts, and kind
That's.
of?
I mean, I took notes, kind of just running through, so I don't know unless you want to go or.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Go
so
ahead.
as they're,
It's kind
you
of
know,
like The
as they're-
Room. It starts with these sweeping views of Seattle,
Yes.
kind of like San
I thought the
Francisco,
same thing.
all the way
I
into
was,
their
like,
private
figuring out, oh,
residence,
it's
which is
Seattle.
very important to the movie. They live in this really weird, private, like fancy place.
But the music is very different.
Yeah.
It's this very intense, like tribal drumming, type
Yep.
score as
Creating a mood.
William Peterson, this guy I'd never seen before, is aggressively running through the woods. And
Oh, yeah, he's running.
every time I watch this, I always do wonder, what are they trying to establish here? That he's a badass?
Yeah, I
Well,
really didn't get that either.
What stood out to me, because Brad, I know you and I are marathon runners, or have been marathon runners. He was being extremely fast for just going out for a morning run. It was like he was basically sprinting, and I thought that was like ridiculous how fast he was running.
Well, and between that and the drumming, it did make me go, like, are they trying to, like, establish that, like, well, here's the, Papa Lion coming back to it, like, don't F with this guy.
Setting
kind
up
of thing.
the type A personality that you see, like with his work, where he can't let anything go. He's always got to go in and be
Right.
right there.
He
So maybe
does.
it's setting that up, and then the confrontation with Wahlberg, and
He does
it
everything at
also
100%.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how he deals with it. And like, even my first thing is here when Nicole comes in, him and her are just elevated right off the bat. They're
Mhm.
just going at each other, and nothing has even happened yet.
But what I do like, and I do like William Peterson, in general, this was my first experience seeing him and everything. But what I do like is, even though that is the case, and I agree with what you're saying, Brad, I don't think that he is overacting.
No,
like, I don't.
I'm not saying that. I just think his
Right,
character
like,
is just.
he's able to
up
pull
there.
off. Yeah, he's able to pull off that he's super intense without, like, really going big, kind of thing.
Right.
And
They're also establishing the environment itself too, because it's very wooded, and there's like trails that go through the woods, which come into play later in the movie, and a couple of times, actually, a couple of the scenes.
Right.
It just sort of establishes the scenery too,
yeah,
in that regard.
well, and so then, basically he makes a comment about how Reese is dressing. When watching this movie now, and I think even back when I saw this in college, I think I had a bit of a, like, it is weird that this movie is who knows how old guy, but clearly not in high school, hitting on. They established that she's 16 years old.
right.
Yeah.
She's not a senior in high school. That's kind of
That's
gross.
the danger.
So,
Mhm.
and we can get to that part later and everything, but she gets to the school and she meets up with Gary. And so Gary, and then I didn't even catch I don't know why I don't have it written down, but Alyssa Milano's character.
I don't know,
Margot.
Margot.
So Margot and Gary, she gets together with them, and they're talking, it's basic, 90210 type banter of, like, what are you gonna, are you gonna remember going out and skipping a little time versus, going to class? And they go to this bar. Like, and that's like, what are they even going to? It's like a bar, pool hall.
It's like a
Well,
it's like
and
a
it's fun. It's gotta be
nightclub
like-
that's about 11 a.m.
It's got to be like 8
all-
in the morning.
Right.
To
And
me,
these
they
guys
were-
are at a bar playing pool already? I don't think
Oh.
so. They're in bed.
Well, but they're at, but it is like, aren't they skipping out to get lunch? They're skipping
They're
out. to get
very
lunch.
serious.
That's the way
Yeah,
I
so
took it.
okay.
When
probably-
they were skipping out
it's a-
to take lunch.
But the way the environment that stood out to me though, the environment of this, it was like a nightclub
Even
that
still,
you would expect
Pete.
at
Right.
1 a.m.
Well, that's the thing. At lunchtime, they're already blasting some very 90s. I didn't. So a lot of the songs in this soundtrack you can't find the names of, or at least I couldn't off of some basic searches.
Except for
So
Bush.
I tried to Shazam this song and it wouldn't come up with anything, and I think it was because all the dialogue over it.
Oh, that could be.
But it's a very, like, to me, I think you guys referenced the song "Steal My Sunshine" by Len a while
Yeah.
back.
Sure.
To me, this is like that song's cousin, right? And they walk in, and they're from afar. We start to see the crew, right? And I got to tell you guys, I'm gonna have a lot to say about Tracy Frame,
Is he the dirtbag?
Logan.
Logan.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is, I gotta say, I started getting the fangs started coming out, and I was getting territorial. I did not like that Alyssa Milano instantly found this guy gorgeous.
Oh yeah,
Like-
yeah.
What are you seeing? So I've got little nicknames for the whole crew. I can give them to you right now. But
Sure.
Tracy Frame, Logan, to me is totally Adam Duritz if he were in Korn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and there's a scene where that comes up bigger. The little dude with the bowler shirts and the drumsticks, that guy is like pygmy Smash Mouth drummer. The guy with the gun, sideways gun, he's like Reject House of Pain. And then the last
Cheers.
guy, the guy who got his hand drilled, we already talked about. That guy was in Stand By Me.
Yep.
He was Dave. He's like
Summer school.
like stoner hippie guy. Like,
Did you do you have a nickname for David then?
well, so he's no, because he's Mark Wahlberg, man.
Mark,
Hey.
come on.
Hey, you guys know me.
So
Mark-
you could argue that all these guys with their nicknames would make up the Funky Bunch.
That it is.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good.
Thank
So
you.
that's the thing, and I gotta tell
See you guys next week. I'm out of here.
Gifford's been up all night. We're working on that one.
We're working on that one.
I'm done.
Well, when you see Wahlberg come on the screen, my goodness. And by the way,
Smoldering.
He's got maybe the tightest shirt that you could ever find.
right.
Oh, that's not what I thought you were going to say there.
But that's the thing is he's just, I mean, he is a good looking guy. And
Right.
and the overall in the movie, the 90s fashion in this movie is, I find 90s clothes, like, so you guys have talked about Friends in the past. I find 90s clothes just gross. Like, so many of the guys are wearing like stuff that's way too, like, a couple of the shirts that William Peterson is wearing are like pirate sails, you know.
I guess I didn't notice it all that much.
I didn't
God,
really
it's
notice it
ridiculous.
that much.
They're like,
either.
he's like, it's like the suit that David Byrne wears in Talking Heads, but a shirt.
Mhm.
Ah, the big
Yeah.
suit.
Yeah. Why such a big suit?
Well,
But-
and on that note, you don't like the '90s clothes. I'm assuming the guys are wearing, but I am a fan of some of the outfits that that Margot and Nicole are wearing in this.
Yeah, there's not well, and yes, although as a grown-up watching this movie, it's hard
It's a little
to feel
but
safe.
yeah.
She's
We know what
20.
you mean.
Yeah, so
She's
to
a
be clear, she's playing a
20-year-old
16-year-old,
woman
but she is
when
20
this
years old.
movie-
I know,
It's
It was
okay.
our
It's
exact
okay, Gifford.
age.
I know, but
Yeah.
I do find myself watching this movie and getting caught up and going like, oh God, she's a sophomore.
No, she's not. Is she in real life? She was 20 years old.
And he was
I
like
get it.
25.
I get it.
And when we were watching this movie, we were 20 years old. When it first came out. So I will not be shamed into, and that's the other thing too. Like right away, when we meet Margot, she finally gets out of class because she says, "Well, Mr. So and So was too busy staring at my tits." It's like,
Right.
do you see her tits? Like they're stuck out there for everybody to look at. Like, what are you expecting wearing that top? Come on now.
So going back to Margot, and again, I was all on board on the Alyssa Milano train for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I'm like, when she sees Logan, what does she say? Ooh la la. What?
That's a interesting phrase you use there, the Alyssa Milano train, because that will come into effect later in the movie.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Oh my God, we're going the wrong direction here. Stop it.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna edit this out.
Yeah, Pete's gonna have to do some editing. This is not our show.
What?
There is a lot of so with those guys all playing pool, I did think that, like, I was like, wow, this crew, there's a lot of fist bumping going on and everything. So you're already establishing that this is like a total bro down crew that I would have not liked.
So she says ooh la la, but then Nicole sees David and they are smitten right off the bat with each other, but they do not speak. They don't say hi. She doesn't know who he is. She leaves. And so there is no connection there, like to meet up again.
But she does see that he saw a flyer. Right?
Oh.
The same flyer.
Oh, what was
I
because
think,
then she
they
gets
both see the flyers for the rave, and she sees him checking it out as he's fist bumping Logan.
Yeah. So now we have a little different scene where she's in the car with her dad, and they've been hating each other, but it's nice because they kind of bond at this point.
Yep.
And they're going to go to this James Taylor concert, and she even smiles once or twice, so things are turning. But then they go home, and he's got to go to work, and everybody hates Dad right away.
Oh, right away.
Well,
I mean,
no.
it turned in a hurry.
Not just her either. Everybody hates Dad.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's just one little thing that I noticed about that is that the reason that he can't go is because he's got to get to the airport so that he can go to Vancouver. And I'm going, okay, I'm Google mapping here. Wouldn't it be quicker just to drive to Vancouver than going to the airport and getting on a plane and drive? It's 2 hours and 46 minutes.
Yes.
Why not just go and drive? I think
unless his company has a private jet that he's able to just get to and fly.
He built his own home with all these reinforced features and everything. And
just on the ground floor though, because the second floor the windows are definitely not reinforced.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
That's
how
what we got to
get
to
the guy through the window.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
But I just had to write that down. Maybe it is feasible that they had a private jet ready to go and everything.
No, but
I would argue
but it's not very far.
This is me just doing math because I'm a math geek. I've always said if you can drive in 6 hours, it's a toss up if it's a fly or a drive, based on commercial traffic or
Commercial
flights.
traffic.
Yeah.
Yep.
So she was all fired up to not go to this rave because she's going to go to James Taylor. But now that Dad's ruined everything, she's going to go to the rave.
Yeah.
Well, it almost pushes her to the rave, teaching all working dads, do not prioritize your career over your kids.
Correct. Yes.
Right. And,
which I've done a great job of doing.
We've also established that this rave, I loved the skyline shot of Seattle where you see the dumpy ass Kingdome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right away.
Before they had the stadiums.
With that first shot, I thought it was New Orleans at first because I thought it was a Superdome. And I'm like, oh, wait a second. I'd forgotten about the Kingdome. And then they showed a Space Needle, and I'm like, oh, yeah, Seattle.
I could almost hear Larry like,
I was going to say it, Pete, but you did anyway. So a rumble breaks out here, and I mean, there's helicopters. Where do the helicopters come from?
Yeah,
they're busting a rave.
Can I back up just a second though? So when they come in, and Margot sees her guy right away and heads off to dance with him. This is a really good and important scene. Is when Nicole and David, she's standing off to the side, and he comes up and starts laying out the charm. Why aren't you dancing? Nobody's asked me yet. And,
super awkward.
Can I back up even one more step?
Sure.
And it's just that they did establish in the previous scene, Gary says when they're talking about the rave and whether or not they're going to go, oh, hope you bring your Uzi.
Right.
So they're establishing that it's in a really bad part of town, hence the helicopters, Brad.
Gary knows his stuff.
Yes, he does.
And,
Except for how to run
he's got a
fast.
feature in broadcasting, later on. But but with that, then when they walk into the rave, so this was a song I was able to find. It's called Green Mind by Dink, but I remember that song. That song was one that was in kind of heavy rotation on the Edge, and so you walk in, it's a rave. It's this heavy song playing, but then that's the thing is when Milano eyes them, she sees Logan, my guy, who,
Yep.
by the way, only has 2 lines in the movie, I think.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure. And I'll
But
get
what
to
a
that.
presence he makes. Wow.
He's visible a ton and in a very annoying way, but he has not spoken at this point. And even here, Alyssa Milano sees him from afar, and that guy dancing at the rave is ridiculous. I mean, he looks like he's doing like this kind of dance where he looks like the gopher from Caddyshack dancing. And she, again, inexplicably is like, oh, there he is. And I'm like, you fucking kidding me?
I think we're supposed to understand that Nicole is kind of damaged and attracted to the wrong person, and it's something that's led her to this in her life, and that's part of the problem that she has to deal with.
Hey, man, I get it, but this
That
guy
went
should
real
be bringing like, Save the Last Dance moves or something. He's got nothing.
Yeah.
And she just goes up and it's like, bam, right on him. And I'm like,
All I'm picking up is a lot of jealousy from
it
Dave
is.
here.
I'm airing a lot of grievances tonight. It's the Festivus episode.
So we have this scene between Nicole and David. They meet for the first time and talk. And then, of course, the fight breaks out. So he saves her, gets her out of there quickly, so night and
So when they
shiny
all get
armor.
up to the roof, I got a question.
Yeah.
They're going down that ladder on the one side, but everybody else is running off like they know where they're going. Like,
Right.
why are they going 2 different directions? And who knows what's going on
Why
here?
is he breaking off from the crew? I get it. Yeah.
Well,
I think
she
that's
shouldn't,
just Wahlberg
she shouldn't be
trying to get
leading
her
Margot
along.
behind. They need to be sticking together. Because
Yeah, but
that
Margot's
is
happy-go-lucky with, what'd you call him?
Adam Duritz
Adam
and
Duritz
Corn.
with
Adam Duritz, yeah. She's going on. She's not going to get separated from her man. And,
But then
David
Nicole should say, hey, David, let's go that way. I need
But
to stay with my friend.
David
I
wants
do
to
wonder-
get her separated away from the group too. And, she's infatuated with him already. So she's going to, she's going, and she's scared too, because there's a freaking riot breaking out at the rave.
But he
Did
calms her
fire
down.
escape, by the
That
way,
is
even
a-
go
oh,
anywhere?
sorry.
They just went down like one story. They went down on the fire escape, and then it looked like that was just it, the end of the fire escape. That's not a real good fire escape for one thing.
Well, and why did she jump down the ladder? She's like halfway down. He's like, just jump.
Well,
It'll
that's
be
right,
okay.
she
It's like,
did.
just keep going down the ladder.
I don't
It's
think the
okay.
ladder reached that far. That was the problem.
No, it would have went all
But
the way.
either way, that whole thing. So I do wonder, maybe it is like a bro thing. They were trying to like, they realized they were all meeting girls and going their separate ways. I mean, obviously David's pretty manipulative throughout the movie,
Correct.
so now he's whatever. But I do think that scene is weirdly, again, much like William Peterson's running at the beginning, it's weirdly over dramatic.
Elevated.
Yeah.
That's the word that goes with this movie. Everything
Yeah,
is elevated.
like I go like, what are they trying to
elevated
establish
fear?
Yeah.
That would make it stand out more because the word fear is there's other movies called it just blends in with other movies.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other night when we were texting back and forth. I'm trying to find a meme from this movie, and I'm like,
Yeah, I had to type in fear Mark Wahlberg.
and I did that too. Yeah, I couldn't find the chest thump one, which really made me sad. So
they are together now, and David calms her and soothes her by talking all sweet about his car with the most ridiculous descriptions of his car. And she goes, wow, you said that like you really meant it.
well, hold on. So it's, guess that's why I got her. Saw that they were all cold in the junkyard. It's not her fault they don't put her together right. Hey, you guys know me. I'm Mark Wahlberg.
This town is getting too
Don't talk
rough
to
for
a
me.
goat.
He sounds a lot like Fred Asparagus there, only kind of like calmed down a little bit.
Say hi to your mother for me, okay?
But she falls
It's
for it because she
it's
is
an
a
elevated Fred
16-year-old,
Asparagus.
and she just can't believe the love he has for this thing. And then we got the classic part where she says, "I got to go home," and he just sets her little watch back because it's just that easy to just turn that knob and the watch is now off.
I know. I'm always like, just like
How do you
fighting
move
with
this
it.
thing?
Can't figure it out. Push in the little thing. Do you have like a paper clip?
I have two
Push
Push
things
it into
I
the
gotta
side.
I have two things I gotta bring up here because of you bringing up the watch, and I knew the watch thing was gonna come up. So I have a question for you guys. But before I do that, so right before he turns the watch back, this goes back to the whole, and it is. I love that in a lot of this movie, he is talking about, like, he is talking in the voice that is totally Andy Samberg, Mark Wahlberg talks to animals, right?
Yep.
So he's talking about his parents back east. Oh, they're totally cool, totally together, but they're weird. They never had a disagreement bigger than whether it's going to be mashed or stovetop, tea or coffee. What are you, in the 50s?
Right.
Mashed or stovetop tea or coffee? Like, was this written by like an 8-year-old man?
An 8-year-old British man, 80-year-old
Right.
British
Like,
man.
what are you talking about? So I did, like, I was like, the entire time that she's falling for him, because I hate that line that you said, Brad, of like, wow, you said that like you really meant it.
Yeah.
Between, like, I'm like, wow. So this is what it's like when you're good looking. Like, they just eat up your bullshit,
Yeah.
you know? Because he's so like he doesn't say.
Or when you're not
anything
good looking and you look like Adam Duritz if he was in Corn, and they eat that up too.
Yeah.
right.
Where do we
So-
fall into this line here?
Yeah. Why am I such a goblin?
Hey, you know where we fall? We fall into the happily married category.
That's
where
right.
we
It just
fall.
takes a while to
That's-
get there.
Yep.
So
Yeah, that's right.
this is gonna jump ahead a little bit, but I gotta ask you guys this because I wrote the note down that I absolutely love. So he turns the watch back, and about 15 minutes later, there's a scene where he does a very aggressive little bloop to the
Yes.
clock in William Peterson's
Yeah.
office to buy
Yeah.
extra time at the fair. And I wrote down, I was like, wow, Wahlberg's a real little rascal when it comes to watches.
Well, now I do want to
That's
talk
his
about
thing.
that because he's taken a really big crapshoot there when he's counting on William Peterson, that being the only clock in the
yeah.
entire house that he's counting on. When he's working on a computer, and it's just a small little dinky little clock, which nobody would pay any attention to.
That's funny because there's a lot of things you have to suspend your belief on in this movie, but that might be the biggest one.
biggest
is
one.
the whole clock situation.
And even how easy the arm went down, because he just gives a little boop. Bought myself
He knows
half
what
an hour.
he's doing.
But I
Not
thought,
my first
okay,
time.
so here's the question I just have to pose to you guys real quick as this little side game. So I love that's like a little, that's very of its time, 90s, right?
Yeah.
That he was able to manipulate these clocks. Like, he wouldn't be able to do that a few years later.
It's like Hermione Granger.
Well, what would the modern day
Time
equivalent of
turner.
that be?
I did not think
Yeah, it's
about
a
that
time-
watching this movie.
I don't think there is one, Dave, because everything is satellite.
Yeah,
driven.
everybody is on the exact same time now.
Yeah.
But if you but what I'm saying is, if you
My
had
phone died. My battery died. That's what you say, right? That's the extent of it.
the power to
Yeah.
drain a battery.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
So they get
I can
home.
imagine if I tried this, William Peterson would be like, "Why is my VCR still blinking? 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock."
I gotta run
That
down to
little
the
rascal.
breakers.
That little rascal Pete again.
After they
Pete
make
again.
out, she gets
Damn
home.
it.
And since he's in Vancouver, Laura has to be the parent. And this is, by the way, this is a stepmom. They're not married. I don't think we made that clear yet.
I
But
thought it was like
she
right away.
defended her earlier with the clothing, but now that she missed her curfew, she just elevates and calls her a slut right to her face. There, it's like, wow, that's
Again, not
great.
she didn't call her a
Uh-huh.
slut. She
Her
said
face.
she looked.
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
slut.
that's what she
That was
said.
There's a
clarified.
difference.
Well, and also,
By the way, Brad, did you make
Hey.
any connections here on it's a blended family where the dad's an architect? Did this
I see where you're going.
except
Boy
he brought
from
a
the one
daughter
family,
to the
although
relationship.
when I
girl-
figured that out,
Yep.
The
yeah,
girl is not
yep.
from the mom, and the boy is not from the dad, so that's a big difference.
Oh,
That's what
okay,
threw
so it's
Pratt
not
off.
like the Brady Bunch.
But the
All
guy
right.
that works out in the security office, he would be like their Alice.
Is there a more useless person in this whole movie?
Yeah, I don't even know what the deal is with that, because what is the security? Like, you don't need to check in apparently to get there.
Yeah, because David comes up
And-
to the house later in the movie,
Yeah.
and she gives him the code to get in. Like, how the hell did he get past?
But how did he get
frickin'
through the
Frack up
security
there?
guy is the question.
Exactly.
It doesn't make sense.
No, he's absolutely, that whole post is useless when the
Well,
the Funky Bunch show up at the end and they can just walk through the woods.
which really doesn't make sense then, William Peterson's, swaggering confidence when Barney Fife shows up.
Right.
Because he just walks out there and punches one of the
Well,
guys
that was
out.
where I used Idiot Dad one of the times.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the most surprising thing was when he had, Wahlberg up against the Jeep, and then he's able to sidestep the hit from behind and come out with two guns, like, drawn, ready to go. Like, he goes from, Barney Fife to Steven Seagal in like a half a second.
I was
Right.
thinking there's a lot of Patrick Swayze could have been in this movie instead of Wahlberg. It would have been very similar.
Mm-hmm.
But
So now we get our first Bush song, and it's a
Yeah.
little montage of making out. And there's another good line here. He says, every part of you tastes so good.
Oh my God.
She loves that too.
Yep.
So much that she wants him to meet the family.
Okay.
Well, he asked to meet the family.
That's true. That's
that
true,
was the
because he's
thing.
playing his game.
What if
He's
your
right.
family?
Well, and
Yeah,
then when
yeah.
he meets the family, and like every line is just so sappy. Like, he talks to the little brother, like,
Not
can't
every
do
line.
without you, buddy. And he
Nicole,
talks
give me a
to the
Coke.
dog. Oh,
Yeah,
well,
that
that was
was-
after the initial
I
like
know.
buttering up of everybody.
that was the whole turning point, though. That line right there
Yeah.
for
And
for
that's
the dad.
another one where, I
Get
mean,
me a
okay, he
Coke.
told her to get him a Coke, but he didn't like yell at her. It wasn't even like that, like
Well,
bossy. But the
he
look the
did-
dad gives is like, oh my God.
he did call it out in a way. It is like Nicole, give me a Coke.
I
Like
think
that.
they could have done something a little more aggressive to make that point.
But there's that
could
very
have said, "Get me a
aggressive
fucking
musical
Coke."
cue.
yeah, or get me a beer.
There's a very aggressive musical cue that lets you know this is where the evil sets in.
Yep.
Mhm.
Because then he does. William Peterson stares. I do want to go back real quick to the Bush montage of making out.
But
So-
doesn't he know this is a Pepsi house?
So watching this again now, and I don't know if I felt this way as a kid. I gotta say, I don't like watching movies with a bunch of making out in it. It's like,
No, well, those two, their
Okay.
makeouts are aggressive, open mouth, like they are really
right.
sucking face.
Well, and we're about to go to one of my pet peeve Logan scenes in a second here, but yeah, so he shows up and he's laying the charm on thick in his total Mark Wahlberg talks to animals voices.
Mhm.
Oh,
You know
this
who
must
else
be
is
the-
laying the charm on?
This must be the great beast Kaiser. Hey, buddy. He was
Say hi to your
talking
mother for me.
He was talking to a dog.
That's why I said say hi to your mother for me.
I wonder if he said, say hi to your mother for me. Maybe that's where that comes from. I never put that together. But
Talking to a dog.
hey, can I step in and help? I worked at a nursery. You got to keep these roots wet, and all
You
that.
call him, like, the
And
roots are
everything he
sensitive of
says
this
comes
little
off
guy.
sounding a little bit dirty too, even when it's not supposed to. It's just gross.
Yeah. So to me, before they leave that scene with where the Nicole get me a Coke, and there's the musical cue, but then Alyssa Milano comes in.
What's up with this?
Yeah,
Well,
he's
so,
trying to turn
okay.
the dad on.
Can I ask you guys, when you were watching this and Alyssa Milano's leaning over, Wahlberg staring at William Peterson is kind of like, I don't know what to do, but I'm looking kind of thing. Did this strike you as very similar to any scene in a movie that I've discussed on this podcast before? I was getting huge Denny looking out the window vibes in the room when there's the whole there's a scene where Mark comes in and there's all this intrigue and Denny's looking out the window. I was like, oh my God, this is almost like the exact same scene.
And again, this is a movie that toes that line. It could have turned into The Room, but it actually is pretty good.
Could have turned into the
But Margot is totally coming on to Steve there, and I don't get it. It's supposed to look suspicious, but what is it about? And what are we? I guess we're supposed to think he's a creep, but he really didn't do anything.
No,
He's just,
I think
it
it's
has
just
to
her
do
pushing
with,
boundaries.
to me, what it has to do with is Wahlberg now knows he has ammo.
yeah, but
He's seen William Peterson step out of line, and so it's just something that he knows.
I know.
I got this
But
over
it-
you.
Yeah, but that never really came back in the movie.
Yeah,
So
right,
that's what I
exactly.
thought too. They never revisited that, or he never even used that.
You got it, Pete.
And I thought that was going to get bigger later on, where she was going to be like trying to have sex with him or something like that.
I
And-
honestly just
and-
thought it was more character development on her, just to let you know that she's just ready to
Well,
push
and that-
boundaries, kind of go outside norms,
Yeah,
and
kind
just
of
do whatever
aimless.
she wants to do.
You know, she doesn't make good
Yeah.
choices.
All right.
Yeah,
That's-
she's gonna
that's
get
what I
into
thought
some
was
trouble.
more about.
So the next scene I would like to talk about, because it is a montage with the song Wild Horses by the Sundays, which
Mhm.
is one of my favorite bands, and it's one of the great covers that's been done. And it's beautiful, but it's a makeout montage of these two. And a lesser song would have completely ruined this scene, because you get this unbelievable scene where they're on a roller coaster, and all of a sudden we're watching him
Yeah.
grope her
You know, they should have been playing "Stroke Me,
between
Stroke
her
Me."
legs. This song is so good that even though the song was not ruined by this scene, it became the first dance at my own wedding
Wow.
5 years later.
Mhm.
Wow,
So it is always tainted by this movie and this scene,
that's high praise.
but that's how good the song is. and
It
how
was-
the band
you're
is.
right. You're absolutely right. And I kind of thought the same thing. And it is actually kind of a beautiful scene. And it's because of that movie. You're absolutely right.
Until the roller coaster.
I don't want to get.
What's wrong with
I
the
also
roller
wonder if
coaster?
the Sundays as a band regretted letting them use the song after they maybe saw how it was placed in the movie.
Right. Well, and here's, I think that scene, for what happens, is filmed very well. In like it, when we're talking about towing that line of being, that scene could have been way more tasteless, way more.
It's tastefully done.
Aggressive.
That's true.
Well, and I think that's why the song works with it,
But
because
it's still
like,
an oh my
Wild
god, what are we
Horses
seeing happen right now?
couldn't
Scene
drag
that
me away.
everybody remembers.
it's when she is really like knows that this is the guy, like she has a new experience that she obviously enjoys, and that song in the background kind of,
Yeah.
to me kind of
Well,
confirms her coming into the relationship.
I gotta say,
at
I
another
find
level.
it to be a very. I find it to be, even back then, I think I found it to be a little bit uncomfortable.
Oh, I
as a
think most
scene.
people were kind of chuckling when they first saw it. We were all like, whoa, what's going on right here?
Well, here's what
Well,
it
that's
was
'cause
for
they're
me. I had
juveniles.
written down that she, in almost every scene that she's with him earlier in the movie, it's like she starts out, if you watch her acting, which I think she was good acting here, it always starts out where she looks to be a little uncomfortable at first, and then she kind of gets into it. That is where she does take it to the next level, and she actually is inviting him.
Yeah.
It's not
Right.
like he just
Yeah,
groped
yeah.
her.
To make the
It's-
point, she
I
does
think that is-
initiate it.
Yeah, I think
Yes,
that is
yes.
an important part of the scene to make it not super uncomfortable.
Right.
He's
Right,
not
and now
being
she-
aggressive in that
Correct.
moment. You know.
Correct.
So yeah, so right after that is when they win a peace pipe, which
Yep.
comes into play later. But right after winning the peace pipe, and during the Bush come down montage, there is a moment where they're at the pool hall, and Reese looks over at Logan and Milano Margot making out, and gets bummed out, and then Wahlberg looks at her and kind of shrugs his shoulders. Well, now here's our next time of seeing Reese seeing them making out, but this time with a weird musical cue again. Logan looks off to the side and points right at her and everything. Like what? What
That
is
point
this guy?
is- he doesn't
Yeah.
speak, Dave. He
You
says
haven't
it with
said
his
a word
actions.
yet, and you're just dumb.
That's
He may be
that's
the last
key. He
great
just
silent
shuts
actor.
up.
What's your point, man? What's the point of your existence?
So he brings her home and she like says goodbye, but then she calls him up, and this is where the dad's in Vancouver and she's got the house to herself. I think, well, the brother is there, I think, isn't he?
Well,
Well,
speaking
both
of,
parents are gone. They got a hotel night. Right?
Oh, that's
Both-
right. He's not,
Did-
yeah.
did
If he
you
goes
write
with her-
this down as a stupid dad moment? So your mom, your daughter meets a new guy that you obviously don't like, and what do? Head out of town for a couple of nights and leave her home alone.
Well,
And
he had to
bring
go to
your
work
wife.
again, didn't he?
Oh, wait, he took her with him. Like he could have
Yeah.
said, "No, I got to go do this myself.
Right.
And this
You
is
stay here and watch her." 'cause
Well,
she's
now
like-
hold on. Here's one thing that I was thinking after the movie, as I'm reflecting on it. He's got the most heavily secured fortress in the.
Yes.
Well, I guess this
Yeah,
is
he's
before.
got Barney Fife watching it.
But he's got no video cameras where he could see what's going on, and wouldn't she?
Yeah, that would have been a little ahead of
again,
his time.
And I'm thinking, ahead of the time. You're right, because nowadays he would have his iPhone and be watching what's going on
Right.
in his house, and so it wouldn't have been an issue.
So this is where she calls him, gives him the code to get into the house. Nobody knows how he gets by the security guy, but he
Right.
gets the code, walks right in, says he loves her, and that's it. Now they are doing it, and they've gone all the way to the new level where she is all in.
the deflowering scene where he
Yes.
checks out the house
by the
before
way-
he wakes her up.
Oh yeah, he looked
There's
around.
another
and
little
everything.
flaw. He starts having sex with her, right? He never, at any point that I saw, stops to put on a condom.
Well,
Right.
I will
Later.
debunk that because when he wakes her, he's already naked. So I think
That's-
he
that's true.
pre-socked up before he even woke her up.
Pretty socked
Can-
up.
And by the way, can we just establish that William Peterson is in Vancouver with his wife because the clock rascal struck?
Yes,
That
exactly.
is why he's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That-
He missed the
That's going to be the
FedEx drop-off.
sequel. Here too,
Because
the
of a
clock
clock
rascal
infestation.
strikes back.
So speaking of elevated,
That's good.
he loves her. She loves him. They do it. Everything's happy. He goes to pick her up at school.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. She is hugging her best friend. And instead of any other reaction, he jumps out of the car, runs over, grabs the guy, throws him to the ground, starts literally kicking him over and over, punches her in the face to knock her to the ground, and keeps going.
Yeah.
And he just does that just like that without even knowing who it is and even thinking.
So I
Elevated.
think what we're supposed to understand, Brad, is that David
do anything
has
for her.
impulse issues.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Right. And when he finally flags her down, at Margot's pool, his part of his speech is, it's just I want you to know that I'd do anything to protect you. And then he uses the line like, if anybody's bad to you, I just want to kill him.
Yeah.
Like,
Well-
I mean,
well-
that's holy crap. Like,
Again,
Jesus.
Like an old school 80-year-old man writing this script. I didn't know it was Gary. I saw some guy with his paws all over you.
Pause. Yeah.
Paws.
Yeah.
Yes. Hey,
Well, he likes to talk
paws.
to animals, so he's got the animals on the mind.
Yeah. Hey, you're a bear, right? Why are you hugging my girlfriend?
But this does lead to, after the fact, a good illusion where Gary calls him Travis Bickle.
Yes.
He's
Yes.
onto him. He's onto him right away.
Yep.
Taxi
Yeah.
driver.
Talked to Travis Bickle yet?
Exactly. Well, and then this guy's just able to obviously now things are way different in the world. You can't just come in and out of schools
Oh
necessarily.
yeah, that's another thing. He's in her school, just walking around all
Yep.
throughout the movie.
Right.
I don't even know if that was really allowed back then, but
Which again was a dynamic that now for sure, but even back then I kind of was like, yeah, you're the weird guy. Like this is like he's good looking Matthew McConaughey from Dazed and Confused.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
That's what I like
Well,
about these
it's-
freshman chicks.
Isn't there actually? He's in the cafeteria at one point.
Yeah.
he comes right behind her and puts his hand over her face. Guess who?
like surprise.
Yes.
Yep.
And this is after he beat the shit out of Gary, so she is not happy to see him because she's over him already.
No, this was after
Well,
she
they
saw.
had gotten back together though. There was
This was
Not
after
yet.
she saw the scene at his house where he picks up Margot and takes her away. In
No,
the
no,
luncheon
that's
scene.
later.
You're right.
That's later.
There's a couple of times
That is
where
later.
Is it?
It
Okay.
is
Yeah.
later. So here's
So
the
right
thing.
now there's a little montage of David just walking around the school, and he tries to put a note in her locker to apologize, and she does not accept it. And then we get Bush again, and we see the inner workings of David's house, and we start to get an insight into where he comes from. We still don't get what he does.
See the mug
Yeah,
shot.
this is the machine head scene. We have seen them cruising around, but yeah, I agree. What do these guys do?
I don't know.
Because at the machine head
Crime.
party, the
They
people
do
that
crime.
show up there, they say, "We're here to see a man about a dog," which is like
Yeah.
a password, but then they get in and they're talking about a dog. So like I'm at one point I'm like, well, do these guys like, have like some black market?
I think
Like,
it's something
dog
weird
running
like
or
that.
something?
Well,
We
and
never
then
know.
when she calls him to invite him over when the parents are gone, he's talking and it looks like he's got a dog. You can't quite see it in his lap while they're driving around, but it looks like he's petting a dog.
But they're all out cruising. They're
Yeah.
all out cruising, and he kind of looks slyly off to the side, and he's like, "I'm busy now, but I could come over later," and all that, and it's like, what are they doing? Like, if they're, because later on, William Peterson refers to them as they're running a cartel after he
Yeah.
trashes their house and he calls the cops.
I
He's
suppose
like,
they're
these guys are
drug
running a
dealers.
cartel.
Right.
But if they're selling drugs, why are they all driving as a group?
I don't know.
Like a lot of that stuff doesn't add up.
It's
Right.
the
As to,
mystery.
like,
If
what-
you know anything about running a cartel, you don't put all your workers in one car and drive them around town. You got to spread out a bit.
Well, you're
you know,
not
cover
making
more
I
ground.
pizza
think you
deliveries.
get an Uber.
Yeah.
So this is where, and Pete, this is important now. This is where the
Okay,
movie
I'm listening.
turns, because the dad finds a Trojan wrapper under her bed. Pete, there was a condom,
That's what brings her back.
and
back
she's
to him.
crying, and she's saying it's over to the mom, and she's like saying, "Oh, I can't believe it, and it's done."
Yeah.
But he comes in, and idiot dad freaks out on her and pushes her back to David because he's so bossy and horrible to her that now she's just going to go date him out of spite.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then he comes back to the house, and he comes home and he sees David messing in the pool with Laura,
Mhm.
and he's making out and kissing Nicole's forehead and looking at David Steve while he's doing it.
Mhm.
That's an aggressive move.
That's
by the
Glad
way.
ballsy.
you brought that up. because
And
that
it's
was a
all
te-
because
would
of
it-
idiot
would have been
dad.
a teachable moment
Yep.
where he could have just sat down with her and joined in the conversation.
Yep.
And had a nice talk with her. But instead, and the stepmom was having a good talk with her.
Well, she was done
and
with
he
him.
turned it all over. He
Well, and
flipped the table.
what I like is when he's talking to what I'm assuming is like a cop friend about trying to like help out. And even his buddy goes, "What did you think she was going to be a virgin for the rest of her life?" Like even that guy's like, "Come on, dude!" Like,
So speaking of
down
watching
just
it
a
from a
little
new perspective,
I
this
lost
is
my
a lesson
virginity to
for
your
all of-
daughter, for Christ's sake.
This is a lesson
Rob,
for
you
all
were
of us
there.
now, as dads, to take from the movie. Don't aggressively attack your daughter like that if you find those.
So I do want to go. I want to go back a little bit to the pool party thing, when she's with Margot, because at one point, so right at that point, she hasn't taken him back yet. He hasn't made his appeal. Dad hasn't freaked out about the condom, but they're sitting there before the crew shows up. The Funky Bunch shows up, and Milano says, "So he hit you," right? Like
Yeah.
she comes in right away on his side. And all I could think was, this is the gal that was sitting in the background during the Kavanaugh hearings, right? Like,
Oh,
I wonder if Milano is totally embarrassed about doing this movie, based on how she is now.
It doesn't
Yeah.
match up.
Yeah. So anyway,
So now that he's lost his daughter, idiot dad strikes again and decides he's going to confront David. And he's acting all cool, walking up to him with his glasses in his mouth, like I'm smooth. And then we get the great line where David says, "Well, if you were doing your job at home, your missus wouldn't be all over my stick."
my stick.
And then he goes, "I'm going to rip your balls off, shove them up your ass and out your mouth."
That's
Well,
a good,
and
that's a good
he-
line. I love
This
it.
was a tough one to hear. He starts it out by when William Peterson lays it all out there, like, you're not going to see my daughter anymore. His first line is, you really not a, and he uses a, he uses a slur that I was like, Jesus,
But
this could not be made now.
so this is the one of the iconic scenes. What does David do as a reaction?
Well,
his chest.
Can you hear
Importantly,
Dave beating
though-
his chest in the background there?
Didn't
So-
he make
and this-
contact? Didn't he like poke him in the chest at first? Like he
Yeah,
actually
he
did?
touched him.
Right, and
Well-
but that was where that sets it up a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah, I gotta say,
he could have done it anyway. It didn't make a difference, but it's still like just
when
made
you
it more
guys
impressive.
watched this, I'm going back to the first time.
I had no
Other
idea what he
than-
was doing, if that's the question.
Yes, that's
No.
the thing. Other than thinking like he's psyching, I thought he was psyching himself up
That is what I thought too. It was like a pump
That's
up
what I
type of
thought.
thing.
because of
Primal,
the
yeah.
face he's making when he's doing it too.
Yep.
He's got this very deranged look on his face. So this is one of my. These are the moments where I love like cult type films or whatever. I love when shows make very deep references that like not a lot of people are going to know. There's an episode of Always Sunny in Philadelphia where Mac and Charlie are like arguing with somebody, and I can't remember who the character is, but whoever the character is out of nowhere starts beating his chest that same way. And they're confused for a second, and all of a sudden Mac looks at Charlie and goes, "Oh shit, that's fear, dude."
It is so
I
fun
just,
to catch those
like,
things.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, and like
So-
this scene to me kind of shows that, William Peterson's character lives in a world where if he says something, it goes well for him. Like it's kind of a
True.
privileged life that he's leading. He's like, you're not going to see my daughter anymore, and that's all there is to it. And I don't want to hear any jibber jabber about it, and then just like takes off. It's like, this is just the way it is.
But he's not dealing with teenagers.
And then he's calling like cops, trying to get like restraining orders. She leaves the property with the guy. Like, well, no, she hasn't been kidnapped, but there's got to be something you can do.
I
Like,
love that. So
he's just
David,
incredulous that he can't get any satisfaction from law enforcement
Well-
because his daughter's misbehaving and doing
David
things he
picks
doesn't
her
like.
up in the car there. She jumps in, and as he drives away, he's staring at the dad, and I love
Mm-hmm.
that. And the dad just goes, "Fuck!"
Yeah, when he doesn't have his keys in his pocket. Yeah,
And then we get Bush again right after that. Bush!
Another very aggressive musical cue, by the way.
Yeah.
When you see David looking at him.
Yep.
And we hear Wild Horses again by the Sundays while they're screwing in his car. So it wasn't just for that one, sweet scene. Now they're doing it again.
So there's something I realized, and as many times as I've seen this movie, I even watched this twice, like leading up to this. I watched it once just for fun, and then I watched it taking notes. I didn't connect this until this last time that I watched it. In this scene where they're making out in the car, he's really into the whole, what is he saying? He's saying, tell me that you want me, right? Isn't that what he's doing?
yeah.
Something like
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Yep.
So I didn't put together that that's what he's also then going up, and clearly he needs something out of that. Like that's a thing for him, because then shortly after, when she tracks him down at the party and she sees what a monster he is, what is it that he's saying to
Yeah.
He's making Alyssa Milano
Tell him that you want me.
Yeah.
right. And I never connected the two. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Like
Well,
I didn't realize that was like,
Well,
That's-
okay, and we do find out through his investigations that David has bounced around foster homes and he's an orphan. So that need to be wanted, I guess that's his story, is that he needs to be, he's never had that in his life.
Right.
That's deep.
Yeah.
So-
And that's what I kind of took it back to as well.
yeah.
And he doesn't know how to deal with anything, unfortunately.
Right. Which, comes back into play late in the final scene when it's all about just those two, and there can't be anything else when he's going to, cap William Peterson.
So he takes her home, as Dave said, and she's going to go in, but then she decides, no, I'm going to get in my car and follow him because I'm not done yet. And he sees that he like basically takes Alyssa Milano from Adam Duritz, and he's forcing her to have sex with him too. And so she gets in her car and leaves. And she actually leaves a really nice note for her sleeping dad. And it's like, okay, everything's going to be okay now. Or is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's over. But then the next scene, they're at the high school. And that's the scene where he comes up in front of
now
Gary.
we're in the
He
cafeteria.
tells, like he does a little shush to Gary,
Yep.
covers her eyes, and she freaks out.
Yep.
And Gary is a hero who protects her and says, get out of here.
Right. Gary, all credit due, doesn't back down, gets in there, and Wahlberg is as intimidating AF, man.
Well,
like,
and you've already gotten your ass kicked by him once.
Getting your ass kicked, I would have run away like a little bitch.
Right. Well, and he does. He just stares him down and everything. And at this point, Wahlberg is very inexplicably out of breath. And I will say, every scene from here on out, he's slightly winded and very much in Mark Wahlberg talks to animals mode. Like every scene from here on, I wrote that down. I'm like, every scene from here on out, he is slightly panting.
And so Nicole now is just a mess. And so she is like, she doesn't really see what happened very well, apparently, because she's shunning Margot. You know, you'd think she'd be like maybe trying to help Margot, but she turns her back on her. Margot's now in her car being chased off the road by David, who threatens to kill her, basically.
What did you say to her?
And then he tries to apologize again, but Steve ain't having it. And so what do if the dad shuts you away and you've lost everything if you're David?
Well, you trash his car.
Well, no, before that, what do you do to your body?
Oh, you got to write the tattoo on your
You got to make a homemade tattoo that says Nicole 4, the number
Eva.
4, Eva,
Eva.
talking about 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Then you trash his car
very
and say, I've popped both your cherries.
So the scene real quick with Milano where he chases her down, that was another one where I had a hard time watching that scene this time. I don't like that he's just manhandling her. And
Well, but that actually, you brought up Fatal Attraction, Gifford, like a Teenage Fatal Attraction.
Yeah.
That scene harkens back very well to Basic Instinct with the chase on the road with the curves on the coast.
Yep.
It's just it's really hard to. I mean, like he hits her a couple of times. That's rough to watch.
Yeah.
So actually, before he trashes the car, though, even worse, he follows Gary, who unfortunately has to walk home through the woods. Chases him down and just snaps his neck just like that.
Right.
And he's dead. So Gary is
probably
dead for what he did.
This is probably the second, the first throw in this movie that may, bend the laws of physics, because all of a sudden he just comes flying from off screen into the middle of the screen. Like
it reminded me of
it's like some
you guys
werewolf.
maybe don't know Twilight that well, and neither do I. But the werewolves in Twilight, it was like Jacob running through the woods like a real animal. That's how fast and amazing he was.
So when he first pushes him and Gary starts running and he gives the Gary like that, as he's running, and then he's running after him. But the whole speech he gives Gary before he shoves him to give the Gary is the weirdest speech. Again, it's like there are times where he talks in here where I'm like, who wrote his dialogue? Because he's like, you know what all these places had in common, Gary? Walls. But I kept breaking them down, so they kept pushing me along. But you know what walls are the easiest to, what walls usually get in front of me now? The moist, fleshy kind. Like, what? Moist,
but
fleshy
that's
kind.
pushing you
What
into
are you
his
talking
psyche.
about?
Like you're getting a feel for it. This guy is freaking crazy.
People, but like, God, could you say that more grossly?
Yeah, that's the beauty of the role. And again, going back to what Pete and Brad have been saying, it's elevated.
Now that I think about it, that's going to be one of my fantasy football teams this next year is the moist, fleshy kind.
And speaking of elevated, David isn't done. So now Nicole's at the mall and he follows her into the bathroom, and that's a scary scene because public bathrooms like that can be scary sometimes. And to see him in there and that lady comes in and there's it's scary. It's bad.
Well, and when he says they're just jealous of us and he reaches down and goes full Trump on her. It's like, what
Wow.
are you doing, man?
Everybody knows what you meant by that.
Yes.
It's part of the lexicon.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
sure is.
Yep.
Part of that locker room talk.
But now we
Yeah.
got idiot dad again. So he decides, I'm going to go to David's house this time.
Yeah,
And he
this
busts
was a real
in.
bad move.
And he, to his credit, he does go crazy because he sees a literal shrine to Nicole, and he
Right.
finds her panties being held there in a box.
He really didn't want to see that. He
He
did
took
not
the
need to
daddy's
see what's
girl
in that
neck
box.
bracelet and he changed it to David's girl. He put his face over her dad's picture in a family photo. So he trashes the entire place, but they of course know who did it.
He inexplicably has a tiny Chucky doll.
Yeah.
Maybe he
Yep.
was like a Raiders or Bucks fan or something.
So I get why the dad is mad and why he would want to do that, but it's just not smart.
No.
no,
But he feels
No.
so betrayed by the law that he has no, I guess that's it. He has no choice. He has to do things on his own. So
Well, and this is where he does make the call afterwards and says, or it's when they find out Gary has died. And
that
yeah.
and when he was in the bathroom with her, because she actually, they had like proof then that he is actually going over the
Stalking
line.
her and
nobody will do
assaulting
anything.
her. Yeah.
and that's where he makes the cartel line. These guys are running their own cartel, and you're telling me you can't do anything.
Right. And then that's when Margot shows up while he's on the phone trying to, figure something out. And she shows up and says Gary's dead. And now it's pushed into overdrive. And then boom, the phone goes dead.
Remember the
And-
great Act 3 in Roadhouse? This is kind of
Yeah.
like that. Act
Yeah.
3.
Yep.
It starts with a throat rip
It,
or
well,
a
it's-
beheaded dog.
Or a
it
beheaded
starts
dog.
with the
Beheaded
head of the
dog. That
dog
was-
being cut
that was
off
the
and
worst
put
part
through
for
the
me.
doggy door.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't do that.
That's
Well, that-
disturbing.
Cool.
That is the moment where you're just like, what?
Oh, this is where we're at now.
Yeah, so we've escalated.
So then we get him with the great peephole scene where
Yep.
he's talking to the dad and he gets his face right up in there. So let me in the fucking house.
Mhm.
And I made another connection here to Three Amigos because everywhere they turned and looked, there were creeps everywhere. And it was like, there's amigos everywhere.
I could see that.
This is another
this is-
situation where cell phones would have fixed a whole lot of problems, but
Yep.
And it's only 4 guys, right? That are
4 or
that are-
5.
I think it's
whole group of-
5.
So it's David, Logan,
Yep.
I don't
The-
beyond that.
drummer
I don't know
boy.
these two.
the guy from Stand By Me. His character is called Hacker.
Okay.
There's
Then
a little
there's
skinny
Big
guy that
Pete.
has a gun later, right? He's another one.
Well, that's House of Pain reject.
Yep.
The guy with the blonde hair, close crop blonde hair, and then there's Pygmy Smash Mouth drummer.
So there's 5 of
And-
them.
So there's 5 of them.
To Barney Fife's credit, he understands the lights flashing
Yeah,
as an
the
SOS.
I believe is what
That's
is.
what
Yeah.
brings him over there to try to
Yeah.
help.
Yeah.
There's so many things here. You already brought up
Doesn't go
earlier in
well.
the show, Dave, that one of the guys gets a power drill through his hand. That's how Laura stops him from getting the lock
That's-
undone.
that-
Yeah, but she didn't go. She should have gone all the way with that.
Yeah, why do
She
you let it
like,
go?
Basically,
Well,
yeah,
here's the
she
thing.
could have,
She
gone
pushes,
all the way.
She puts the drill up against the guy's hand and then starts it. Like if that's your hand and you can't see, like if somebody presses a sharp thing up against your hand, don't you move your hand quickly? Like
Yeah,
I mean,
She could have done a lot more damage. It was
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
a bad choice.
Yeah.
but
that
he checks out right away after that. He's like, I gotta go to the hospital. I'm
Right,
F,
and he
you know.
takes
You're like
so he
pulled
takes
off and was like
Pygmy
going to change
Smash
bits
Mouth
or
drummer
something.
with him.
That's what we
So-
thought.
So he takes Pygmy Smash Mouth drummer. They're now down to 3. This is where we get Logan. I believe one of his 2 lines is when he's basically got a tree trunk and is
Mhm.
slamming it into the
Oh
door.
yeah, you're
And he
using
says-
a battering ram.
Yeah, and he's saying "eye for an eye," Mr. Walker is one of the because I think
You
I
trash
can't remember
our
what
place,
the other
we'll
thing is
trash
he says,
yours.
but yeah, but can I just talk about what a creep? Like, let's go back to creepy Logan. He is such a creep throughout this whole thing. There's one moment where they're running around in the house in terror, and at one point they look up at like a skylight, and he's up there and he's just grinding and pointing at them.
Yep.
You guys
Yeah.
remember that?
Oh yeah.
Well, and then when they finally get in and they're handcuffing the mom and the dad, and he's like standing behind Laura, like
grinding her.
dry humping her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how they get in again? Idiot dad.
Yep.
The security guy shows up. So what does he do? He goes outside. He's holding a spear. But instead of doing anything, he throws it to the ground and walks over to David and punches him in the face.
Yeah.
And then the other guy shows up and shoots the security guard, and now you're screwed.
Right.
Yeah,
Take
yeah.
the
House of
spear and
Pain
do something with
rejected,
it, you
comes out of
dummy.
nowhere, shoots him.
Right.
And that's where it is weird how much confidence he has there. Given, by the way, if you've just seen a beheaded dog,
Yeah.
are you
All bets are off.
oh, I'm going to go out there and just
I'm not
whoop
gonna punch
his
him.
ass?
I'm
No,
going to
Like,
keep
you
my
don't
distance.
even know what they have.
Especially
Right.
if I'm holding a 6-foot spear.
Right.
Well, and then you've got, so you basically got 3 guys left. And this is when Toby jumps into action. He's the only
Toby,
one
by
who's
the way, is the
actually
little brother.
taking
We've
care of
hardly
some
mentioned
business
him.
here.
He's what, like 10 years
Level-headed.
old?
Yeah. Yeah. So he backs over over the one guy and calls 911. He's the only one getting shit done.
He's got a future as like a closer in baseball because that guy is
Yeah.
cold-blooded.
One of the
Like,
creepiest
he's getting
moments.
shot
too.
at, and all he does is lean forward.
Yep.
And then he like as a non-driver, he puts the car in reverse and just wallops
Whacks.
this guy.
Yep.
One of the
Like-
other creepiest moments is right before they actually get in the house too. There's a hole in the door, and Laura's looking out, and David just slowly pokes his head over.
Yep.
Laura. He's so calm. He's still putting the charm on, almost like, you're gonna let me in, Laura.
Yeah.
But
'Cause
slightly
he's
off
psycho. He doesn't care, man.
But yes, the little kid comes through. He's awesome. David then decides he's just gonna shoot Adam Duritz from Korn right in the head.
Right. Because he's messing with Nicole.
That's
He
kind of
got
out
her
of
on the
nowhere.
bed and he's roughing her up and he's like, that's
Nicole
it.
ain't part of this.
Yeah.
That's some trauma to see.
Yeah.
And he gets a stake to his back.
That's
But
But should have
doesn't
did
really-
more damage than
And
what
his-
it did.
You'd
His
think it would
face
do a
when
lot of
he-
damage.
His face when he gets stabbed by the peace pipe is just like, it's awesome.
Right.
Because he's just so,
Well, and to me, like, this was it. Like, this was
You-
her taking control of the situation.
You'd think it
And
would
she's going to
paralyze
put
him.
the man down that's been terrorizing her. But no.
Now we
still
got the guy
a
fight.
Shitload more
Well,
to go.
Well, and here's the other one, right
Different.
before
They
the
had to
peace
set up
pipe
my
thing.
comment.
Right
Oh,
before
yeah.
the peace pipe thing and everything else. At one point, he goes over. He's like, "Say goodbye to your dad," and which is kind of like say hi to your mother, but the opposite. And he goes over, "Say goodbye to your dad," and he puts a gun right to her, and she says, she screams like, "No!" And he really looks up like sincerely and goes, "What?
Yeah.
Like,
He's
don't you want to
so
be
gone.
together?"
Yeah.
So as you brought up earlier in the show, they fight, and it ends with him somehow picking up this muscular, ripped young man, throwing him through a window. You see him fly like probably 20 yards in the air
Yes.
through the window, out
50
onto
yards.
a
Nothing to be
giant
proud of,
rock
Russ.
on the shore.
Yes.
I mean, if that was real life, he'd barely get out the window and just kind of putter down the wall.
When you say it that way, I feel really stupid for buying all this bullshit.
So we talked earlier about how he throws him out the window and then turns around and there's that second of him looking back at his family kind of with an exhale, and Brad
Anyone
does.
else would they comment?
But what I loved was then after they're on him for a second, then they flash to Nicole, and God love Reese Witherspoon, but even her facial reaction, she didn't know how to act to what the hell
I don't know
happened.
what she does. I'd have to see that again.
Well, she kind of like, it was almost like smile, relief, horror in that my dad just killed the guy that I loved like a day and a half ago. It was just like,
sums it up.
but I mean, but it's
She
just
kinda-
like, she was like, it was
Yeah,
just
she
so
kind of
weird.
gives a "Oh, Dad"
Right.
kind of look.
Oh, Dad.
But after he looks at the family, credits come on.
It's just
no more
boom.
dialogue. I'm like,
Yep.
shouldn't there be some kind of a coda
That's
here?
Right.
Well, so that's the other thing that I do think is weird. He throws him out that window. He lands on rocks.
Yep.
But then if you watch that final scene as the credits roll, there's
There's an ambulance coming in, right?
well, and there's
but-
police boats around. Like if you look at it and you go, okay,
Well, the kid called
basically,
911 from the
house.
car, right? So
There's no
it must
cliff.
be that
There's,
the tide came in or something.
Oh,
But
the
there's
rock's
no-
not shown anymore?
it's like
there's
a
no rocks
50
where
foot
he would've went.
tide.
Oh, maybe
So-
it's a Jason Bourne situation. The tide came up, swept him out to the sea, and that's the beginning of Jason Bourne.
Given
here
well,
too. Elevated
Well,
fear.
when we get into the draft, there's a cast poll.
It writes
that-
itself.
There's a cast poll when we get into the draft that I'm gonna bring up if it doesn't get mentioned. And this
Well, I
one,
think we're probably about there. So I just wanted to say that I was wondering, because you made a comment before we watched this, Dave, about maybe not thinking it was too good anymore. So I watched it. I'm like, this is exactly what I remember. It's it's crazy, it's insane, but it's fun, and I'm so happy to watch it.
it wasn't that. So I said I kind of got a bit of a Showgirls vibe, and I've told you guys before, when I rewatched Showgirls, I was like, oh, I'm never watching this again. And it's because there's a lot of gross stuff in Showgirls, but the final scene where her friend gets assaulted and everything, it's too much.
Mm-hmm.
I can't watch that. And this one, what I'll say is, as much as I enjoyed watching the movie, I really did have a hard time seeing like high school girls getting hit. Like I didn't like that.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely hard, but
Intimidated and terrorized. I mean,
but between that and like when you guys brought up the stall scene, it's just a bit much for me.
Yeah. Well, and that's where the pit in the stomach comes in as the the movie builds. You're just, it's tough to watch.
Do you guys have any other final thoughts?
No, I think that I'm glad you picked it, Dave. I'm glad I got to watch it again, and revisit it. And like I said, I just thought it was fun to see these two, really at the the beginnings of their
career, for sure.
I think this would be a fun movie for us some night to all watch together. That would be.
It would be.
On a
That's how
roller
I'd
coaster.
like to watch it.
Well, we could come over and we could argue stovetop or mash, tea or coffee.
Tea or coffee.
Tea or coffee.
Yep.
Should you want to explain our draft then, Dave? Because we're going to finish off this month with a good old-fashioned draft.
Yeah, so we had done just the regular top fives up until now, but you guys, I wasn't aware you guys were switching the format, and it really didn't work for the other ones.
No, it works best for tonight, so it's great.
Right. So the idea would be that we're going to do top 5 from the cast of this movie. It's got to be main characters. And the example I'll give you is Hacker, who was in, one of the guys in the crew, we've already talked about. He was in Summer School and Stand By Me. You hardly even know that guy's in the movie. I don't view those as eligible.
Right. But basically, 90% of the picks are going to be Mark Wahlberg or Reese Witherspoon movies. Right. But there are a few others you could bring in.
I would say William Peterson, Amy Brenneman, and Alyssa Milano would be your other.
Those
would be the 5.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Right. So we're gonna pick our top 5 in draft order. We're gonna pick our favorite movies or TV shows, whatever they've been in. And are we gonna do a snake draft?
Yeah, let's do that.
We have 4 people. The snake draft might make it a little more interesting.
Well, so Dave,
I think
Dave will be our first pick, and then Pete.
I'm gonna win this one.
And then myself, and then Brad. So when Brad found out he was the 4th pick, that's when he suggested we do a snake draft.
Yeah, you nailed it, Gifford. That's right. Although I do think, regardless, it would be the best way to do this one.
Very strategic. Right. He's always trying to get that advantage.
I know. I'm a little rascal.
Well, what's nice about the snake draft is that Brad will get to pick 2 in a row, which if he has to do 1 pick, he usually makes it into 2 anyway. So that'll work out just fine.
Dave, who are you going to pick first? We all know what your first pick is.
Yes.
Well, I'm taking the crown jewel of what's available, man. I'm going Boogie Nights.
There you go.
Very good pick.
I'm a star. I'm a bright shining star.
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
Prove it.
All right. I am going to take Walk the Line.
Knew it.
Which we talked about, and Pete picked that movie, so you could listen to that.
I love that movie. Yes.
Yeah. All right, I am going with The Italian Job.
Oh, that's a good one.
Okay, so it's no doubt I'm going to pick a Reese Witherspoon movie first. Yep. And I'm going to pick Pleasantville because I love that movie, and it was my wife's and I first date on top of it.
Oh, that must have been
Pete,
pleasant.
You were there.
I've never seen it.
You should. It's really good.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
All right, so that's my first pick. Now I get to go again.
Yes, sir.
Oh, and the obvious next one for me probably even a better movie, The Fighter, Mark Wahlberg. That is one of my all-time favorite movies right there. So those were easy picks for me.
Yep.
Back to you, Giff.
Oh, I got two big ones here. I'm trying to pick between the two. I am going to go with the other guys.
Nice. Don't go chasing waterfalls, Giff.
Yeah. Creep.
Pete.
Michael Keaton.
Seriously, who is that? That's my favorite part of that whole movie when he meets Ava Mendes the first time.
All right. I will pick Legally Blonde.
Oh, good pick, Pete.
Pete's going with the Reese movies.
Yeah. Good ones, too.
I gotta say, you guys have been staying away from the high ones on my list. So
back to Dave for two. So here you go.
Well, so my number two, and it's by far my second favorite movie out of everything that's available, and that is Heat. Amy Brenneman's in Heat.
Yep.
Oh,
it's a good one.
So I was worried I would get sniped, but I thought if
I didn't have that on my list. I didn't even look at her really.
That's a very good pick.
What is it? She's on a TV show, right? That's what she's most known for. Which show is it?
I think Judging Amy.
Judging Amy.
Yeah.
So, and that was the thing, as I went back before we got on tonight, just to check her list again to see if there was anything I kind of missed, and I really didn't. Between this and Heat came out within a year of each other, and they were two of like the first four things she ever did.
Did she have a significant role in Heat? Because I don't remember.
Yeah, she was.
She's De Niro's girlfriend.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's actually when she's introduced and she's trying to talk to De Niro at the coffee shop. There's an awesome scene where she asks him what he's reading, and he sits there for a second and he's like, "Lady, why are you so interested in what I'm reading?"
Mm-hmm.
And she's just like, I'm sorry, and like you can tell she's like this lonely lady, and it's a great scene.
It is.
All right, Dave, what's your next pick?
My next pick, I am gonna go Ted.
Yep, that was one of my bolded ones right there.
Ted also stars the guy that played. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. Flash Gordon.
Yeah,
Ted and Wahlberg are Thunder buddies that are obsessed with Flash Gordon.
Yeah,
and they get to meet him. It's Sam something. I can't believe I'm blanking on his name.
Well, is he in this movie or something?
He's in Ted.
Yeah, I know that.
Wahlberg's in Ted.
I know that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Giff.
I'm blanking too.
Wait.
Pizza.
Pete. Doesn't Dave get? Did you do two picks?
He took Heat.
I got
Heat
two.
and
Heat
Ted.
and Ted.
Okay. All right. I will take
Breaking Bad.
Patriots Day, starring Mark Wahlberg.
Patriots Day. That was a good movie.
I loved it.
Did you say Patriot Day?
Patriots Day or Patriot Day, whatever.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I am going to go with, I'm going to take one of my faves, my second favorite Reese Witherspoon movie, and that is Cruel Intentions.
Bittersweet Symphony.
That's right. The Verve.
Okay, so I get two now, and then
You
I
get
sit
two, Brad.
until the last pick, so I got to make these good. Wow, there's a lot of good ones out there.
There's
I
a
don't
ton
even
of
know
good
what
stuff.
to go with. Well, I'm going to go off the board here and pick a TV show because I loved Big Little Lies.
Mm-hmm.
That was a fantastically entertaining show. And then where do we go from there? There's so many movies that I liked.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the last one that I have bolded, I should pick that one then. Election.
Oh,
Yeah.
I figured you'd take that with your third pick. Good. Yep.
All right,
Striker.
so I got three Reese's. Okay,
I
back
was gonna-
to GIF.
I was going to take that one just so you didn't, even though I'm not a huge fan. But I am going to go with The Departed.
It's a good one.
Yes, it is. It's a good one.
I will take American Psycho,
Yep.
starring Reese Witherspoon.
It is. All right, Dave closes out his list now.
Yeah. Let's see.
Based on
here.
what you said earlier, I'm hoping you're going to pick something by one of these people here.
Well, all right. I'm going for Matt because you guys put these out and have people vote on them, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
There's something that's important to me that I'll mention later, but I'm not going to put it on there because I don't think it'll get a lot of votes.
Gifford will win
going,
anyway.
I'm picking our movie tonight. I'm picking Fear.
Yep.
And then I'm going the Milano route. I'm going Commando.
Nice.
I thought you had to have an Alyssa Milano movie.
Yes.
You know, I don't even have Fear on my list because I thought that was not really included in this, but I guess we didn't ever say that. So
No, you pulled a Pete.
Well, yeah,
I could. Okay. All right. I'll take it off.
no, you don't have to.
No, absolutely not.
I'll take The
fine.
Office.
No.
I'll take The Office.
No. Just keep... I get it. I see what you did there.
The Office. from
Fine.
2000.
Okay. I'll take Park and Rec.
All right, Pete.
This Pete's last
so many
one.
choices. This is my last one. I will go. We've got a couple of Reese ones left that I could go, but I'm going to go Deepwater Horizon. I thought that was a good movie.
Wow, I don't even know what that is.
It's about it's a true story about the
Wahlberg's in it?
Deepwater Horizon oil
BP oil spill.
explosion.
Hmm.
Yes.
All right. Gif.
Okay, so last pick here.
Who will be my Mr. Irrelevant? This is going to be really hard.
Brock
That's
Purdy.
what she said.
There's one obvious one that I think hasn't been, unless I missed it, hasn't been selected yet.
Is it Brock Purdy?
Come on, Gif. We're live here.
We're live?
It doesn't matter that much.
Do it
All right.
live.
I am going with when I became her biggest fan. I'm going with Who's the Boss.
Oh, I thought that would show up.
Somebody had to.
Samantha.
All right, so I got 3 Reese ones already. Feel like I should take a Mark Wahlberg one.
We're
But
live.
but I think I like hers more. Good one. I'm going to pick that movie that I brought up on our road trip episode, the original road trip,
Oh,
Overnight Delivery, because it also has Paul Rudd in it. And, you know, it's this Lost in the Shuffle movie. And I think it should deserve
Lost
a
in the
little
Shuffle.
shout out.
There
And
you
it's
go.
filmed in Minnesota. So what more do you want? Jesus.
right?
Did nobody say Sweet Home Alabama?
I didn't say Sweet Home Alabama or
Well,
Friends.
let's go through. So
I
nobody
have
said
other movies
Manhunter
written down.
or
Nope.
what is the show that William Peterson
CSI.
did? CSI.
So
Nope.
I would have picked CSI as a favorite. That's something we're watching with the girls right now. And
Mhm.
there was about a 5-year span there, easy, where
Yep.
that was by far Sonia and I's favorite show.
Yeah, I watched a ton of that with Courtney too.
For Alyssa Milano, I had down Hall Pass and My Name
Yep.
is Earl as a couple of options if I needed something.
How about
Yeah,
Embrace the
contender.
Vampire, Poison Ivy 2, or Charmed?
Yeah, if you watch those sort of things.
Well, and by the way, going back to William Peterson real quick, he's also in Manhunter, which is a Michael Mann film.
I said that. I said that. And
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yep.
Sorry.
And then so you guys can do the Mark Wahlberg. The other Reese ones I had down. I almost picked Man on the Moon because that was my introduction to Reese. It's a great movie. I fell in love with her, but I skipped it. Four Christmases. I know Pete likes that one. That's a
Mhm.
fun Christmas.
I just watched that one.
And then the other one I had down is Friends, because
So-
she had a memorable arc on Friends or
Yep.
episode.
Oh, yeah.
Sister.
She was Rachel's sister, right?
That's right.
Yep.
I'm
youngest
not
one.
a
Rachel's
huge.
sister.
I'm not a huge Reese Witherspoon fan, and so the 2 that got picked that I had written down were American Psycho and Election. The only other Reese Witherspoon movies I had written down were Water for Elephants, because I really like that book, Mud, Wild, and then the Sing movies.
Oh yeah, Wild is good.
Yeah.
I mean, she's done so many. I picked the
Right.
ones that I liked the most, but there's so many
Yeah.
others.
Yeah.
I had under Wahlberg, Invincible, Rockstar,
Rockstar, yep.
Perfect Storm,
Yep.
Three Kings,
I almost picked that one too.
and The Big Hit. If you haven't seen The Big Hit, I recommend it.
What's that
got-
one?
He is in a like a assassins like gang with like Antonio Sabato Jr. and it's
How old
like
is it?
hip hop Assassinations for Hire.
Oh my God, I'm gonna have to watch that.
It's not a great movie, but man, it hits me right. I like it.
So
I had two others by him. Date Night.
Yeah, I never
And-
watched that.
which I've never seen.
Here's one that I actually really liked. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it's got Rose Byrne, who I also love. Instant Family. That was a really good, fun, nice movie.
I haven't
Okay.
seen
We've
it.
only
That's one I
picked,
do want to see. And then the only other one I had written down was the Basketball Diaries, which came out right before Fear. I don't think I saw it before Fear, but it's a tough movie to watch. But him and Leo are really good in it.
What'd you say, Pete?
I was just going to say, we've only talked TV and movies. Could we have talked about restaurants too? Because I love Wahlburgers.
Or
Wahlburgers.
albums?
Yeah.
Good
well, you could've,
vibrations. Feel it. Feel
But
it.
we've
Love that
got
song.
a Wahlburgers here in Maple Grove, and I love it. Wahlberg was also in. Did you guys say the Transformers movie? Yeah, he was in one of the
No.
Transformers.
He was in
movies.
2 of them, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't.
I think we
stand
pretty
it.
much covered everything else that I had. William Peterson was in The Contender.
Yeah, there's a lot more out there, but
Hey,
Kinda
did you
like
know that he was also in Manhunter?
by the
I
way,
He
I
was
love-
also. I think he was also Aziz Ansari's boss in one episode of Park and Rec.
Oh,
I didn't.
okay. Makes sense.
I didn't know Manhunter back. You actually introduced it to me, Dave. I didn't realize it was the original Red Dragon before
Yeah.
Silence of the Lambs, and so then I
Yeah.
went back and watched it, and like, yeah, that's a really good movie. And the Brian Cox playing Hannibal Lecter, it's a pretty cool movie.
Yeah, it's
Right.
not bad. It's worth a watch.
Well, it's just, and Michael Mann is just awesome. That's why I was so stoked I got Heat. I really like Michael Mann.
Mhm.
So
All right.
All right.
Well,
You know
that's
who
our
I fear?
supersized month of milestone episodes with our best friend Dave. So
I think it's time to close the book on Dave, though.
well, so
there it
hold on. If this is like the yearbook and everything, am I like so I can't think of McConaughey's character's name in Dazed, but am I that guy?
You
are that
Woodard.
guy.
Am I the guy? Wooderson?
You'll be
Am I
back.
hanging out?
Yeah, Wooderson.
Am I
Yeah.
overstaying my welcome?
Yeah.
no, you're
No,
always
you're not
welcome.
overstaying your welcome, but it's time to move on, I guess. It's been a good month, and I greatly appreciate you coming on and picking our subjects for the month and sharing the 100th.
You know
Couldn't
what
have
I
done
like
Three
about those
Amigos
girls
without
in
you.
Fear? I get older. They stay the same age.
Mm-hmm.
You know who else gets older and stays the same age?
Pool
Preacher
boy.
Row.
Preacher Row. That's goddamn right.
All right. If you're still listening after all these episodes and all this time, we thank you very much.
Yes, thank
We got
you.
100 more
Thank you.
coming.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Standing on my own 2 feet. No one's here to comfort me. Sorry for what I have done. Sorry that your song is gone. 7 steps and it will be my last. Next time, tell me on my plan. I turn and I look to you. I'm scared, but there's nothing I can do.